I think we need to take the levers of power and move them much closer to home, to the people who are affected by those decisions, so that they are in charge of their own destiny, that they can create the sort of communities they want to live in, the sort of opportunities for their kids that they want to see, so that so that not only is change coming, but they've been the people who drive and shape that change and shape the future of the country. And the reason that I now believe this isn't just necessary but actually inevitable is because, at least since the global financial crash, people have been calling time repeatedly on an economic model that isn't delivering for them and their families. We're one of the most centralised countries in the world, and we try to power a modern economy in a major country using only a handful of people in a handful of sectors in a small part of the country. And beyond that, all we've had for over a decade for the rest of the country is a one-word plan: redistribution. Well, I've felt very much as the MP for Wigan, a former mining town, where within living memory we powered the world and built this country's wealth and influence, that the loss of those good jobs and the loss of that ability to shape our own destiny has been felt very, very keenly. And although the last Labour government came in and did huge amounts to rebuild and to, particularly with devolution to Scotland and Wales, and the regional development agencies in England tried to pursue what was a fairly ambitious agenda for devolution and re-empowerment of different parts of the United Kingdom, I feel that's really stalled in recent years, and it needs to go far, far deeper, because 2008 financial crash, clearly the model is broken. It's not allowing young people in towns like mine to stay and contribute. They have to choose between the future and work and opportunity, and love and home and family. And for some kids, they'll want to get out, but for other young people, they'll want to stay and get on. And we should be able to give them those choices, because where do they go to? They go to the major cities, where in Glasgow, in Manchester, in Bristol and in London. Young people like me moved for opportunities 20 years ago, and they're still moving now. They find the higher wages, but they also find the cripplingly high housing costs and the air pollution and the congestion and the strain on public services. The country can't go on like this. We've got to create good jobs and growth in every part of our country, give people the chance to be able to contribute, not just receive, but to give as well, which is what they've been asking of us. And in doing so, we'll start to build our way out of the national malaise, this very divided country where we're constantly pitted against one another, and an economy that doesn't produce enough growth in order to sustain decent public services. And I think we could do far, far better if we moved power out of Westminster and Whitehall into communities, into people's hands, so that they had far more say over the future of their own country.
So I've been in so many conversations for well over a decade now about greater devolution across the United Kingdom, whether it's more powers to the Scottish Parliament, more mayors across England, enhancing the role of local government, whatever the definition is. And I'm really intrigued by what we mean by power, because when I hear you talk about investing in communities, building the infrastructure, creating the jobs, driving economic development, to me that requires the devolution of a lot of economic powers, things like borrowing. Do you think people will be that bold in the next phase of devolving power down?
I think where we need to start is around economic devolution, particularly around the levers that drive economic growth. Look at some of the success stories of where this has succeeded over recent decades, and there has been some cross-party political consensus on this. I had Michael Heseltine in my office for a chat the other day. There were, John Prescott and Jack Straw have been enormously helpful. There are lots of people who want this to succeed across the political spectrum, but where it's really worked are things like in Grimsby, where the Regional Development Agency was empowered 20 years ago to put up a lot of money up front, but also to do the things that needed to be done to attract private sector investment into the wind industry. Everyone was lamenting the pressure on the fishing industry. And the guy who runs the Regional Development Agency, because he lived in the region, said, well, hang on a minute, this is the windiest place in Europe. Surely we can do something with that. And out of that came this incredible achievement where they were able to build the roads that were needed, invest in the skills of the young people, and the private sector investment flowed. And so as a consequence, when Keir and I visited a year ago, we were standing with young apprentices who were powering the world from the Grimsby docks, just like their parents and grandparents powered us through the last century. They're going to power us through the next. That's exciting stuff, but that should be available everywhere, not just in some places. So the powers over skills and over housing, over employment and retraining, over transport, all of these things have to be moved much closer to home in order that people can deliver. And I think, thinking about the UK as a whole, as a government, we will always respect people who are elected, whichever party they represent. We'll respect the right of the Scottish people to vote for whichever Scottish government they want to vote for, respect the right of the Welsh people to do so, and mayors across England, and we'll work with those elected leaders respectfully and in partnership in order to drive real change. But I think Anna Sarwar has been saying something really important in Scotland about how devolution needs to go deeper and be far closer to people, that the mayoral model that we've had across England, the absence of that across Scotland, has meant that in many parts of the country, people feel as disconnected from Holyrood as they do from Westminster. Now, that's a sentiment that I recognise very much from the work that Mark Drakeford's been doing in Wales, where the situation of people in North Wales and in the valleys is profoundly different from the situation in Cardiff. And we need to be much more flexible locally about how we respond to some of those challenges and how we build on the assets and the potential that exists in those places. So economic powers is where I would start, with the right to keep far more of your own finance that you raise locally, not to try and create more inequality between the country, between places that are doing well and not, but far more flexibility about how you raise and spend your own money in your own community. Seems to me that, the government's made a bit of a start on that with business rates, and that's something that we're exploring on the Labour side as well. But being able to keep more of the money that you raise locally seems to me an important way of making places far more independent and far more in the driving seat of what happens in their own communities.